They told me the screaming wasn't real, that the blood wasn't real, that the room with no windows, the rust-colored walls, the little girl sobbing in the corner, all of it, just a symptom. Trauma-induced psychosis. But what kind of delusion leaves claw marks under your fingernails? What kind of hallucination shows up in a missing persons report? I've spent 9 months in this psychiatric facility trying to convince them I'm sane. But last night, I heard her again, whispering from inside the vents. You left me here. You locked the door. Rain slid down the wide windows like slow tears as Dr. Kessler leaned back in his chair, clipboard resting on his knee. He was older than I expected, with wire-framed glasses and a voice like velvet soaked in bourbon. So, Leah, he said, let's start simple. Do you know why you're here? I hesitated. Not because I didn't know, but because I did. They brought me in 2 weeks ago, half naked and screaming on the sidewalk in front of my apartment in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I'd clawed at my own arms until they bled, insisting there was someone locked inside my bedroom wall. I looked down at my hands. The wounds were healing now, scabbed over like old secrets. They think I hurt someone, I said. A child. He nodded slowly, not confirming, not denying. Do you think you did? That question was a knife. Because the truth was, I didn't know. I remembered flashes, a small hand in mine, braiding a doll's hair, a scream that didn't feel like it came from outside me. And then, silence. Like something had been vacuumed out of my skull. They say her name was Ava, I murmured. But I don't remember her. Not really. Kessler scribbled something. You've been diagnosed with dissociative amnesia, possibly linked to PTSD. The stress response can bury memories, especially if they're traumatic. I've never had a child, I said. I live alone. There are no records, no photos, no toys. Just this hole in my head. And yet, he said, you woke up covered in blood. There were drawings taped to your walls. A voice recorder with bedtime stories. And in your closet, a dress, child-sized. I flinched. I didn't remember any of that. I still didn't. He leaned forward. Leah, if there's something inside you trying to speak, you need to let it out. Otherwise, you'll never leave this place. I looked around the room. Padded walls. A steel-reinforced door. No sharp objects, no shoelaces. The kind of room they put you in when they think you might hurt someone. Or yourself. That night, I lay in my cot with the blanket pulled to my chin, listening to the humming vent above my head. It buzzed softly, a white noise lullaby. Until, just past midnight, I heard it. A soft whisper. Wet, like a mouth too close to the microphone. Why did you lock the door? I sat up, heart punching through my ribs. The whisper came again, lower this time, as if the voice were crouching just inside the vent. Why did you leave me there? My breath came in short, panicked bursts. I reached for the call button, but stopped, because I wasn't sure what scared me more. The voice, or the fact that part of me remembered saying, just stay quiet. Mommy will be back. Morning came like a hangover, too bright, too loud, and way too late. I didn't sleep after the voice in the vent. I just lay there, frozen, every cell in my body listening for a sound I prayed wouldn't come again. It didn't. But something else did. At 7:15, Nurse Angela wheeled in the meds cart, humming something tuneless. She handed me a plastic cup with 2 pills, olanzapine and lorazepam, antipsychotic and anti-anxiety. The hospital's idea of peace in a bottle. I didn't want to take them, but I did, because I had to look compliant, cooperative, sane. Rough night? She asked, scanning my face. I'm fine, I lied. She gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes, then left. I stood up, joints stiff, and walked toward the mirror above the sink. That's when I saw it. Scratches. Thin, red, angry lines along my forearms. Not from the night I was admitted. These were fresh. Shallow, but deliberate. 3 vertical lines, parallel, like a child had dragged their nails down my skin. I didn't remember doing it. I didn't even think I could have. I'd kept my hands balled into fists all night. I was sure of it. I stared at them for a long time. They weren't self-harm. They were a message. A signature. The same kind of marks I'd seen once, in a dream I couldn't explain, on the wall of a small room, carved into peeling wallpaper. A handprint next to them, smeared in something dark and drying. I pulled on my sweater and went to group therapy. 6 of us circled in chairs, sunlight slicing through the blinds like prison bars. The topic was grounding techniques, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept drifting back to the scratches, to the voice, to Ava. I raised my hand. Can trauma make you remember things that never happened? The therapist, Cynthia, blinked. What do you mean? Like details. Specific ones. A song, or the feel of a blanket. But you're told it's all in your head. How do you know if it's real? A man across from me, Daniel, maybe, nodded slowly. Sometimes the body remembers what the brain won't. That's what my doc says. Cynthia smiled encouragingly. That's a very real thing. Somatic memory. Your body holding trauma, even if your conscious mind has no access to it. The words made my stomach twist. Back in my room, I dug through the bedside drawer. No pens, no paper clips, too dangerous. But I found a small notepad, staff-issued, with a dull hospital pencil. I started to draw. A door. A child's hand. 3 scratches. And a room I didn't recognize, but that felt terrifyingly familiar. Small. Windowless. The walls were stained. The light was flickering. In the corner, a mattress on the floor. No sheets. Just a single doll, slumped sideways. When I was done, I stared at it. My hands were shaking. I flipped the notepad over, hard hammering, and wrote 2 words. Find her. Just then, a gust of air rattled the vent. I looked up and saw something watching me. 2 eyes. Small. Wide. Pressed against the grate like they'd been waiting for hours. Then, just as I screamed, they vanished. Security came running, of course. 2 orderlies pinned me down while Nurse Angela injected something cold into my thigh. The world bent sideways, then went dark. I woke up strapped to the bed, wrists and ankles bound. My throat was raw from screaming. Dr. Kessler stood at the foot of the bed with his arms crossed, concern stitched into every line of his face. You had another episode, he said gently. Do you remember what happened? I nodded. There were eyes. In the vent. He didn't flinch. Just scribbled something on his clipboard. Dr. Kessler. I think there's a room in this facility. One they don't talk about. He looked up. Why do you say that? Because I've seen it. Not here, not exactly, but in my head. A small room. Dirty walls. No windows. I keep seeing it. And someone's in there. He stepped closer. Leah, the mind can manifest places like that when it's trying to make sense of trauma. Symbols. Visual metaphors. It's not a metaphor, I snapped. I drew it. It's real. I felt the cold in that room. I heard the crying. He glanced down at the notepad still clutched in my hand. I didn't remember grabbing it. They must have forgotten to take it when I passed out. He took it from me carefully, flipping through the pages. When he got to the drawing, his face changed. Just for a second. A flicker. Recognition? Then it was gone. He closed the notepad and said, I'll have someone check the vents. Make sure there are no animals or structural issues. But Leah, I need you to consider the possibility that your mind is creating these details as a way to process guilt. What guilt? I whispered. I don't even know what I did. He hesitated. Then said, sometimes that's the deepest form of guilt. The kind you can't remember doing. Later that night, they unstrapped me and let me back into the common area. I sat in the corner, watching TV with the volume low. Most of the other patients didn't talk much, but the woman next to me leaned over and said, You've seen her, haven't you? My heart stopped. Who? I asked. The girl. In the vents. I stared at her. Her eyes were glassy, her hair wild and unwashed, but she wasn't smiling. She wasn't joking. I used to hear her too, she whispered. Back when they kept me in Wing D. My skin prickled. There is no Wing D. She laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. That's what they want you to think. But it's there. Locked. Covered over. Like she never existed. What's her name? I asked. The woman paused, then leaned in close. Ava. Blood roared in my ears. How do you know that? I was here when they brought her in, she said. Years ago. They said she was violent. But she wasn't. Just scared. She used to scream at night. Beg for someone named Leah. I couldn't breathe. That's my name. She nodded slowly. Then maybe you're finally remembering. That night, I tore the vent cover off my wall. It took hours, using just the edge of the metal bed leg. But when it finally came loose, I climbed up and peered inside. A tunnel. Not wide, but deep. Leading somewhere. And on the wall inside, faint and dusty, scratched into the metal. Mommy. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat staring at that word in the vent, Mommy, until dawn lit the edges of the sky like an autopsy scar. My hands were shaking, blood crusted beneath my nails from prying open the panel. But I didn't care. Because someone, some child, had carved that word. Not in a dream. Not in my delusion. In real, solid metal. I could touch it. I could trace it with my finger. She had been there. I needed proof. At breakfast, I stole a butter knife. No one noticed. The staff barely looked at us, just herded us in and out like cattle. I wrapped the knife in a napkin and hid it inside my pillowcase. That afternoon, I waited until lights out. Then I worked. The vent tunnel was narrow, barely enough space to crawl. It stretched left, toward the outer edge of the facility. I slid in headfirst, dragging myself inch by inch through the dust and darkness. It felt like a grave. The air grew colder the farther I went. After maybe 20 feet, I came to a junction. One path sloped downward, sharp and steep. The angle didn't make sense. I followed it anyway. It dumped me into a crawl space, hidden, filthy, and untouched. Beneath the facility, I aimed the flashlight from my stolen med cart. A tiny pin light swiped from the nurse's tray. The beam caught on something ahead. A door. Not a full-sized one. A child's door. Just 5 feet high, rusted metal, no knob. And beside it, 3 vertical scratches. Just like the ones on my arms. My stomach turned. I pushed the door open. It creaked on hinges stiff with age. Inside, a room maybe 6 feet by 6, walls bare concrete, light flickering from a broken ceiling bulb. The mattress. The doll. The smell of mildew and urine and something darker. Ava had lived here. Or been kept here. My hands shook as I stepped inside. My knees nearly gave. On the far wall, written in marker or blood, was a phrase repeated over and over. She promised she'd come back. She promised she'd come back. She promised. Then, from the shadows behind me, something moved. I spun around, but no one was there. My breath fogged in the cold. I backed toward the door. And that's when I heard the sobbing. Soft. Ragged. From the corner. I turned the flashlight and saw her. A girl. Maybe 7. Pale, filthy, crouched against the wall. Her eyes huge and bottomless. She stared at me like I was a ghost. Ava. I whispered. She opened her mouth, but her voice was wrong. Too deep. Echoed. You said you'd come back. I stumbled backward, heart slamming. Then she smiled, and it wasn't a child's smile. It was something older. Broken. Inhuman. The flashlight flickered out. Pitch black. I screamed. Crawled. Slammed my shoulder into the wall until I found the tunnel again and dragged myself back through it, gasping, heart shredding itself in my chest. I collapsed onto the floor of my room, sobbing, covered in grime and blood. The vent behind me clanged shut. And from inside it, something whispered. Now we remember together. I didn't speak for 2 days. They thought I was regressing. I let them think that. Ate my meals. Took the pills. Smiled at Nurse Angela like nothing had happened, like I hadn't found a secret room beneath the facility, hadn't looked a ghost in the eye. Because now I knew. They were hiding something. And if I wanted the truth, I had to stop acting like a patient. I had to start acting like an investigator. That evening, I faked a tremor. Pretended the meds were making my hands shake. Angela, concerned, brought me to the nurse's station for a quick vitals check. While she turned to grab her stethoscope, I slipped a key card off her lanyard. She didn't notice. That night, I waited until lights out. Slipped the card into the hallway reader. It beeped green. I moved through the corridors like a shadow. Past the common area. Past the therapy rooms. Toward the records office. The door was locked, but the key card worked. Inside, rows of cabinets. Hundreds of patient files. I scanned for Ava. Nothing under A. But something under D. Donovan, Ava. Date of birth, 2017. Intake, November 2023. Diagnosis, conduct disorder, suspected early onset schizophrenia. I opened the folder. My blood ran cold. Under primary caregiver Leah Donovan. My name. Except I didn't have a daughter. Did I? I flipped through the pages. Notes in Dr. Kessler's handwriting. Ava had been brought in by a woman claiming to be her mother. Severe behavioral issues. Violence. Dissociation. Screaming episodes. Then, child placed in solitary wing D for evaluation due to risk to staff and self. And finally, stamped across the last page. Deceased, unconfirmed. No body found. I dropped the file. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely breathe. She was mine. Somehow, she was mine. And I'd left her here. Or worse. Behind me, the door creaked. I turned, heart in my throat. Dr. Kessler stood in the doorway. His face was calm. Too calm. You shouldn't be in here, Leah. I backed away. What did you do to her? His eyes darkened. You're not well. You're experiencing delusional guilt. Fabricating memories to cope with trauma. No, I said. I saw the room. I saw her. She's real. You kept her locked under this building. He sighed. We tried to help her. But she was dangerous. The things she said. The things she made people see. What do you mean? She was born from you. Your trauma. Your mind fractured. You created her. Gave her a name. A history. A voice. But Ava was never just a child. My knees buckled. You're lying, I whispered. I felt her hand. I saw her face. Kessler stepped forward. She doesn't want you to remember, Leah. Because when you do, she'll have to go back inside. I ran. Back through the halls. Past the sleeping patients. Back to my room. I crawled into bed and pulled the blanket over my head like a child. And as I drifted towards sleep, the whisper returned, colder now. Closer. Don't believe him. He's the one who locked the door. Sleep came in waves, black, drowning waves. In one, I was holding her. Ava. Wrapped in a purple blanket, her breath warm on my chest. In another, I was standing outside that door again, the one beneath the facility, hearing her screams through concrete. But the worst wave, the deepest one, was me walking backward through time, erasing myself step by step. No job, no apartment, no friends. Nothing left but that child's voice in my head, begging not to be forgotten. I woke up screaming. Dr. Kessler was in the room again, sitting in the corner like he had been all night, watching me. I'm not crazy, I snapped. No, he said. You're fragmented. His words echoed. You created Ava when you were 9, he continued. You were already in and out of foster care. Abuse. Neglect. To survive, your mind built someone else. Someone innocent. Someone who couldn't be hurt. I stared at him. You're saying I was Ava? He shook his head. No. You were Leah. But Ava was part of you. A separate identity. Dissociative identity disorder created to absorb the pain. No, I said, shaking. Ava was real. I remember her smile. Her voice. Her screams. That's how deep the fracture runs. He stood, walked toward the bed. Years later, you started regressing. Ava reemerged. But she didn't want to go back. She wanted control. My mouth went dry. Control? He nodded. You blacked out. Woke up in the street. But before that, something happened here. I saw it again, the scratches on my arms. The missing dress. The crying in the vents. She hurt people, I whispered. You hurt people, Kessler said gently. When Ava took over, you brought her here. Insisted she needed treatment. But when we realized there was no Ava, we placed you under observation. That's when the screaming started. I shook my head. That can't be true. We sealed Wing D, closed the file. But you kept hearing her. Seeing her. Because part of you still believes she exists. I stood, shaking. Then explained the drawings. The scratches. The room. The girl in the corner. You built them, he said. Every one. Ava was your safe place. But now she's a prison. He stepped closer. You have to let her go, Leah, or you'll never get out of here. But something inside me rebelled. Screamed. Scratched at the walls of my skull. Because what if he was wrong? What if Ava was real, not just a memory, not just a fracture, but someone they couldn't explain? Someone they had to erase? That night, I went back into the vent. Down the tunnel. Through the cold. Back to the room. The door was open. And inside, Ava stood waiting. She smiled. You found me again, she said. Tears poured down my face. I remember everything now. And Ava, or the part of me that wore her face, said softly. Then it's time to come home. She held out her hand. Behind her, the walls began to change, pulsing like a living thing. And I realized, with sudden clarity, I was never in the facility. The facility was inside me. The walls writhed like muscle beneath skin, breathing in time with my pulse. The room, Ava's room, pulsed with something ancient, something buried, and now awakened. I stood in the doorway, every part of me screaming to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Ava stepped forward, bare feet silent on the concrete floor. You kept me in here, she said softly. You locked the door. I didn't mean to, I whispered. She tilted her head. You promised you'd come back. Her voice cracked like glass under weight. I saw now, the grime on her skin, the blue of her lips, the raw blisters on her fingers from clawing the walls. She had suffered. Because of me. And she wasn't a ghost. She wasn't a hallucination. She was the part of me I'd buried. The child version. The broken version. The one who took the beatings. Who heard the screams. Who was touched when she shouldn't have been. Who had to carry that pain alone. I'd left her here. I created Ava when I was 9, yes. But not as a protector. As a prisoner. So I could forget. All the abuse. All the nights hiding in closets. All the guilt when my little sister died and I told no one. That was the truth. Ava wasn't my daughter. She was me. The girl who remembered. I fell to my knees. I'm sorry, I whispered. I didn't know how to survive. So I left you here. I thought if I locked the door, I'd be free. Ava knelt in front of me, touched my cheek. You were just a child too, she said. But I never stopped waiting. Tears slid down my face. You don't have to anymore. She smiled, and for the first time, it wasn't twisted or broken. Just tired. So tired. I forgive you, she said. The walls shuddered. Cracked. Light poured in from behind her, soft and golden and warm. A door appeared. Not the one I came through. Another one. Wide open. Ava looked toward it. Then back at me. Will you come with me? I nodded. She took my hand. And we walked through together. I woke up in a hospital bed. Sunlight poured through the window. Not barred. Not bulletproof. Real sunlight. Nurse Angela sat beside me, reading. When she saw my eyes open, she smiled. Welcome back. I blinked, confused. Where am I? St. Mary's Rehabilitation Center. You've been transferred. Dr. Kessler, retired. Memories flooded in, but they didn't hurt. Not like before. Because now, I wasn't holding them alone. I sat up, my hands steady. For the first time in years, the voices were gone. No whispers. No scratching. No crying in the vents. Just silence. And in that silence, I finally heard something else. Peace. Outside the window, children played on a grassy lawn. One of them, a little girl with dark hair, looked up at me. She smiled. And just for a moment, I thought I saw Ava there. Not trapped. Not screaming. Just free.